Leave. You're not family. You don't belong here. My dad said that to me at my own sister's wedding. He said it right to my face, standing at the entrance of a venue I had crossed an entire ocean to reach. I'd been on a plane for over 16 hours. I still had my carry-on rolling behind me. My feet hurt. My eyes were puffy from bad airplane sleep. And there he was, blocking the door like some kind of bouncer who shared my last name, telling me I wasn't welcome. My mom was standing 5 feet behind him. She looked right at me. She didn't say a word. 3 days later, she called me about a bill. A $44,000 bill with my name on it. For a wedding I wasn't even allowed to walk into. What I said back to her made the line go completely silent. But before I get into all that, real quick, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now. I post stories like this every week and you do not want to miss what's coming. And drop your city and your local time in the comments right now. I genuinely read every single one and I love knowing where in the world you're watching from. My name is Maya. I'm 32 years old. I live in Paris, France, where I work as a financial analyst for a mid-sized investment consulting firm. I analyze risk for a living. I read numbers the way some people read faces. I can tell when something doesn't add up before anyone else in the room even suspects there's a problem. That skill, it turns out, is exactly what saved me. Let me take you back about 5 months to the afternoon an invitation showed up at my apartment door. Growing up in the Caldwell house in Raleigh, North Carolina, there were basically 2 different childhoods happening under one roof. There was my sister Brooke's version, the one with sweet 16 parties and a pearl white Jeep Wrangler sitting in the driveway with a big red bow on it the morning of her birthday. The version where our dad, Ray, would drive her to travel softball games 3 states away and call her his little superstar and actually mean every word of it. And then there was my version. My version was the one where I filled out my own college application forms at the public library because nobody at home told me the deadlines were coming. My version was the one where I made honor roll 3 years in a row and all I got was a half-second nod from my dad before he turned back to whatever game was on TV. Ray ran a mid-sized landscaping company on the east side of Raleigh. He talked about it like he'd built something from nothing, like it was some kind of empire. In reality, it was 4 trucks, a rotating door of seasonal workers, and a mountain of unpaid invoices. My mom, Sandra, stayed home and, I guess you could say, kept the vibe in the house from completely falling apart. Mostly that meant agreeing with Ray about everything and steering any tension away from Brooke and directly at me. Brooke was 4 years younger. Easy laugh, magnetic smile, genuinely believed the universe had been arranged specifically for her benefit. I don't say that to be shady. I say it because it's the foundation that every single thing in this story was built on. I left home at 18 on a partial academic scholarship to NC State. Nobody helped me load the car. Nobody came to move-in day. I didn't expect them to. I was so used to doing things on my own by then that their absence barely registered. 6 years ago, at 26, I got a job with Meridian Capital Advisors, a financial consulting firm with an office in Paris. They needed someone who understood money inside and out and could get by in French. I was both. I packed 2 suitcases and got on a plane. I built a life there, 1 decimal point at a time. A clean 1-bedroom apartment near the Canal Saint Martin. A job that challenged me. A city that didn't know my family and therefore had no opinions already formed about who I was or wasn't. I didn't leave home. Home just never really made room for me in the first place. The invitation came on a Wednesday in late October. Heavy cream envelope. Fancy raised print return address. The kind of stationery that costs more per sheet than most people spend on lunch. Inside, a formal invitation to the wedding of Brooke Caldwell and Marcus Webb. To be held at the Hartwell Manor, Raleigh, North Carolina. January 18th, black tie optional. I looked up Hartwell Manor. Old Southern plantation-style estate. Crystal ballrooms. Manicured gardens. Event packages starting at $28,000. For a family where the landscaping company couldn't keep up with payroll half the year, this was a stretch. What made me actually consider going was the handwritten note tucked inside. Brooke's handwriting, that big loopy cursive she's had since middle school. It wouldn't feel right without you there. Please come. Love, B. In all the years since I'd moved away, my parents had called me exactly when they needed something. Question about a tax form. A dispute with an insurance company they needed me to translate into plain English. Brooke called on birthdays sometimes. Christmas was usually a group text. And now this, a formal invitation and a personal note. Something that looked almost like it meant something. I booked the flight that same week. Paris Charles de Gaulle to Raleigh-Durham. Economy class. $1,400 round trip. I told myself I wasn't going because I'd forgiven anyone. I told myself I was going out of curiosity. I wanted to see with my own eyes whether anything had shifted. There's a difference between forgiveness and hope, and I was holding on to the second one with both hands. My college best friend, Danny Reyes, texted me the second I told her. She was a paralegal at a firm back in Raleigh. We'd stayed close all these years. Her response was simple. You're actually going? Bold. I'd have that return ticket ready. I should have listened to her tone. There was also someone else I should mention, my cousin Marcus, no relation to Brooke's fiancé. 24, fresh out of college, recently moved to Raleigh for a software job. We'd always been close in the way cousins are when neither of them fully fits with the main family. He texted me a few days before the wedding. Hey, heads up, the vibe here has been off. Nobody's talking about you coming. I texted back, weird how? He sent, like everyone's acting like you're not on the guest list. I forwarded him a photo of the invitation. He replied, okay, that's definitely your name. Tim. I didn't change my plans. Maybe I should have. I landed at Raleigh-Durham on a Friday afternoon in January. The air smelled like pine and diesel and a specific kind of southern winter cold that you don't get in Paris. I picked up a rental car and drove to the Courtyard Marriott near downtown. I hadn't stayed at my parents' house in years. Nobody questioned it anymore. From the hotel room I called Brooke. 5 rings. Then, hey. You made it? Just checked in. Anything I should know about tomorrow? Just get to the venue by 2. Ceremony's at 3. Her voice had that clipped quality, the sound of someone in a crowded room who doesn't want to have a real conversation. Cool. I'll be there. 'Kay, gotta go. Rehearsal stuff. See you. She hung up before I could say anything else. I called my mom next. Sandra picked up on the second ring. And the very first thing she said to me was, oh, you actually got on the plane? I figured the flight was too long. I thought you'd cancel. I was sitting on the edge of the hotel bed in my coat, suitcase still upright by the door, and I just let that sentence sit there for a second. She didn't say she was glad I came. She didn't say she'd see me tomorrow. She said she assumed I wouldn't show up. I told her I'd be at the venue at 2 and ended the call. Something was off. I could feel it the way you feel a shift in air pressure, nothing you can point to directly, just a tightening somewhere behind your ears. I didn't sleep well that night. Saturday, January 18th. I wore a fitted burgundy dress I'd bought on Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré specifically for this occasion. Low block heels, small gold earrings, hair pulled back. Nothing flashy. Just enough to say I belonged without having to announce it. Hartwell Manor sat at the end of a long driveway lined with bare oaks draped in warm Edison lights. Through the tall front windows, I could see the glow of chandeliers. A string quartet was already playing, something classical, something that floated out over the winter hedges and told you this was the real deal, a serious event, the kind someone had spent real money on. My dad was standing outside. Not inside greeting guests. Not at the altar with his daughter. Standing outside on the front walkway, hands shoved in the pockets of a sport coat I'd never seen before, parked next to a rented black Escalade that still had the dealer sticker on the rear window. He saw me coming and stepped forward. Maya. You need to go. I stopped walking. Excuse me? This is a family event. You weren't invited. I held up the invitation. The actual cream-colored, fancy printed invitation with my name on it. Dad, I have the invitation right here. My name is on it. That was a mistake. You shouldn't have come. I looked past him through the glass doors. Brooke was inside in a white gown, laughing with her bridesmaids. My mom was standing near the entrance in a dusty rose mother-of-the-bride dress, watching us through the window. She didn't come outside. She didn't wave. She didn't do anything. Dad, don't do this. The guests are right inside. Walk away, Maya. Don't make a scene. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. Not in front of him. I turned around, pulled my bag back down the walkway, and got into the rental car. I sat there with the engine running for probably 10 minutes before I cried. And even then, I didn't cry about the wedding. I cried because I had let myself believe again that this time would be different. If you've ever been made to feel like an outsider in your own family, you already know exactly what that cry feels like. Drop a heart in the comments if you do. And if you're not subscribed yet, please do it right now. This story is only getting started. Back at the Marriott, I sat on the bed in my burgundy dress, shoes still on, staring at the muted TV. I called Danny at 8. They did what? Her voice came through sharp enough to cut through the whole hotel floor. I told her everything. Ray at the entrance. Sandra watching through the glass. Brooke laughing inside in her gown while I stood on the walkway with an invitation nobody honored. I want to rebook my flight, I said. I want to go home. Don't. Not yet. She paused. Maya, listen to me. Something about this doesn't add up. They sent you an invitation. Brooke wrote you a personal note. You flew 16 hours and they turned you away at the door. People don't do that unless they're covering something up or they need something from you. I wanted to argue. My family was perfectly capable of hurting people without any hidden reason behind it. But Danny had spent years reading between the lines of legal documents. She had a gift for hearing the thing underneath the thing. Give it a few days, she said. If nothing happens by Monday, fly home. But something is going to happen. Can feel it. I almost clicked confirm on the rebooking page. My cursor sat right there on the button. I didn't click it. 3 days passed. Nobody called. I worked remotely from the desk by the hotel window, reviewing quarterly reports for a German client who definitely did not care that my personal life was unraveling. That was the thing about financial analysis. Numbers don't have feelings. They just say what they say. On Monday morning, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Brooke's feed was overflowing. Hartwell Manor in golden hour light. Brooke and Marcus under a floral arch. The cake. 5 tiers, fondant flowers, probably $1,500 minimum. Hashtags. Perfect day. Forever web. 40-something photos. Not one of me. Not one mention of me, like I'd never crossed an ocean or stood on that walkway holding an invitation that had my name on it. Then I saw my mom's post. Sandra had put up a collage, Brooke as a baby, Brooke at prom, Brooke and Ray at the altar. And at the bottom, tucked in like an afterthought, a photo of me and Brooke when we were maybe 7 and 3, sitting on the porch swing in matching 4th of July dresses. The caption, so incredibly proud of both my girls. I stared at the word both until it stopped making sense. She'd used me as a prop for the narrative. She couldn't exactly explain to all the aunts and cousins why one of her daughters wasn't in a single wedding photo. So she reached back a decade and pulled out the one image that made it look like the story had always been whole. Meanwhile, Brooke had posted a honeymoon countdown. Cancun, here we come. Tagged at a resort I quickly Googled. Beachfront suites. 6 nights. Kind of trip where breakfast alone costs what most people spend on a week of groceries. I closed the app, turned off my laptop, and ate chips from the vending machine for dinner. Tuesday morning, 9:20. My phone rang. Mom. I almost didn't pick up. But the financial analyst in me has a rule. You don't dodge a call when you don't know what the other side is holding. Maya. Sandra's voice was flat. No hello, no how are you, no warmth of any kind. We need to talk about the bill. What bill? The venue. Hartwell Manor. The total is $44,000. A pause. When are you going to take care of it? I sat up. Mom. What are you talking about? I didn't hire a venue. You signed the contract. You're the guarantor, meaning you agreed to be responsible for paying the bill if they couldn't. Your name is on the agreement. The room went sideways. I had never signed anything. I had never been asked to sign anything. I hadn't even known there was a contract. I never signed a single document for that wedding. Some shuffling on the other end. Then my dad's voice, hard and close like he'd been right there the whole time. Don't play games, Maya. Your name is on that contract. You made a commitment to this family. I made a commitment? You kicked me out of the wedding and now you're telling me I owe you $44,000? We'll address that later. Right now you need to handle the bill. Dad, I did not sign anything. Then who did? A ghost? I pressed my hand flat on the hotel desk. My heart was hammering, but my voice stayed completely even. When you do what I do for a living, you learn how to keep your voice level even when your chest is on fire. You keep saying contract and my signature. I'm telling you right now, I have never signed a guarantor agreement for Hartwell Manor or for any wedding. He hung up. I sat in that hotel room and let the words loop back through my head. Contract. Your signature. Guarantor. I knew what those words meant. I read contracts for a living. I knew what a forged signature meant under the law. And I knew exactly what my next move was. I called Hartwell Manor at 10:15. The event coordinator, a woman named Patricia Cole, picked up, professional voice steady, the kind of person who manages 50 events a year and doesn't rattle easy. Ms. Cole, my name is Maya Caldwell. I'm calling about the Caldwell-Webb wedding that took place at your venue on January 18th. I understand there's a guarantor agreement associated with the event. Yes, we do have a guarantor on file for that booking. Maya Caldwell. That's my name. But I did not sign that document. Silence. Kind where you can almost hear someone stop typing. Ms. Caldwell, can you say that again? I did not sign a guarantor agreement for this wedding. I was not asked. I was not told it existed. And I was not there when it was signed. I need a copy of that document. She walked me through the steps. Written request, a copy of my government ID to prove who I was, and they'd email the scan contract within 48 hours through their legal team. I thanked her, hung up, drafted the request letter in about 15 minutes, attached a scan of my passport photo page, and sent it off so there was a record it was received. Then I called Danny. It's real, I said. There's a contract with my name on it. And I never signed it. Danny was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Okay, she said. Now we work. I had 48 hours before the contract copy would arrive. 48 hours to figure out what kind of person I was going to be about all of this. The calls started by Wednesday. Aunt Lynn came first. Warm voice, rehearsed speech, the tone of someone who'd been briefed before dialing. Maya, honey, your mama is beside herself. She says you promised to help with the venue and now you're going back on your word. I know things get complicated, but think about your parents. I didn't promise anything. But I recognized the script. Sandra had already planted the seed. Uncle Dennis followed with a text. Long, single space like a written lecture. Subject, family is everything. The argument, don't let money come between blood. The subtext, just pay it and stop being difficult. My cousin Priya, sweet girl, the one who always tried to stay neutral in family stuff, sent a voice note clearly recorded from her car. Maya, I don't know the whole story, but honestly, just handle it. It's easier. My cousin Marcus, the one who'd warned me before the wedding, was strangely quiet through all of this. I'd find out why soon enough. In total, about 18 family members reached out over 2 days. Every single one of them had received the same version of events, that I had made a promise I was now breaking. That I was cold. That I was selfish. That I had money and was choosing it over my family. None of them had seen the contract. None of them had thought to ask. I saved every message, every voicemail, every text. In financial analysis, you write everything down. When someone else is telling a story about you, the only thing that can stop it is a paper trail. Then Marcus, my cousin, not the groom, texted privately. Hey, something's off. Aunt Sandra keeps saying you promised to cover the venue, but I don't think she's telling the whole story. Can we talk? I typed back, not yet. But keep your eyes open. Understood, he sent. Then after a pause, for what it's worth, I don't buy it. I know you, Maya. One person out of 18 who thought to actually question the narrative. Brooke called Thursday afternoon. I was working at the hotel desk when her name lit up my screen. Maya. No warmth. Straight to business. You need to just pay the bill. You're making this into a whole thing and it doesn't have to be. Brooke. You had me turned away at your wedding. By our own dad. And now you're calling me about money? That was his decision, not mine. And you stood inside and watched through the window. Silence. Look, she said. Dad handled the contract months ago. It's done. Just take care of the balance and we move forward. I never signed anything. Whatever. Your name is on it. Dad handled it. Just write the check and stop being dramatic. You can afford it. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the ceiling. The hotel room ceiling. The one I'd been staring at for 5 days. Brooke. I need you to answer one question honestly. Did you know Dad put my name on that contract? The silence lasted 5 full seconds. When you're counting in your head, 5 seconds is an eternity. Doesn't matter, she finally said. Matters to me. You left this family, Maya. You moved to Paris and checked out. You don't get to fly back once a year and act like you're some kind of victim when things get real. I ended the call. Set my phone face down on the desk. My hands were completely steady, not because I was calm, but because something had clicked into place inside me. She knew. She'd known the whole time. And she didn't care even a little bit. Okay, I need to stop here for a second. You just heard what Brooke said to me. Just write the check. Like $44,000 for a wedding I got physically barred from walking into is somehow a casual ask. So here's my question for you, and I want you to drop your answer in the comments right now. If your own sibling called you and said that, what would you do? Option 1, sure, I'll pay it. Right after you apologize on camera with witnesses. Option 2, I would literally rather set that money on fire. Option 3, tell me your answer. I'm reading every comment. And if you are not subscribed yet, do it right now. Tap that button. This story is about to flip completely upside down. Friday morning, my dad called again. His voice had that performance quality, the one he puts on when he's rehearsed what he's going to say. I talked to a guy I know who does property law. He says a guarantor contract is legally binding. You've got 30 days to pay or the venue pursues legal action. A guy he knows. Not a lawyer. A guy who does property law. Dad, did your guy also explain what happens when the guarantor's signature is forged? Dead air. Nobody forged anything. Then you won't have a problem when I compare the signature on that document to my actual signature, which is on my passport, which I'm going to be handing to the venue's legal team. Another silence. Heavier this time. You think you're so smart with your Paris apartment and your fancy consulting job. A judge isn't going to care about any of that. You're welcome to take me to court, Dad. But I'd strongly suggest talking to an actual attorney first. You unrate. He hung up before he finished the word. I'd been called ungrateful so many times growing up that the word had lost all its texture, like a stone that's been tumbled in a river until it's perfectly smooth. But here's what I noticed in that call. When I said the word forged, he went silent first. Before the deflection. Before the threat. Before he called me ungrateful. He went silent first. That silence told me everything I needed to know. My mom called that same evening. Alone this time. No Ray lurking in the background. Her voice had softened into something fragile and teary that might have been real or might have been very practiced. I genuinely couldn't tell anymore. Maya, please. Your father can't sleep. If the venue takes this to court, we could lose the house. Mom, you could lose the house because someone forged my name on a legal document. Don't use that word. Her voice tightened. We didn't forge anything. We used your information because we didn't have a choice. There it was, sitting right inside a denial. You had no other choice? You would have said no. And that should have been the end of it. A long breath. I could hear background noise, the TV, the hum of the refrigerator. The sounds of the house I grew up in. You've always been like this, she said, and the fragility evaporated. Cold. Even as a little girl. Brooke needed this wedding. Your father and I, our credit has been destroyed since the landscaping company went under. The venue required a guarantor. We had your social security number, your tax records. They were in a box in your old room. So you went through my personal documents and used my identity to sign a legal contract without telling me. We didn't steal anything. You're our daughter. That's what family does. No, Mom. Family asks. You don't understand what it's been like for us. I understand exactly what it's been like because you just told me. You went through my private documents, forged my name on a $44,000 contract, and then had me turned away at the door so I wouldn't figure it out before the event was over. She was crying now. Real tears, probably. I let the silence do the work. Okay, I have to pause here for a second. Because what Sandra just said to me, we used your information because we didn't have a choice, that is a confession. Right there inside a denial, she admitted everything. Have you ever had someone confess something to you while trying to convince you they did nothing wrong? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. What happens next changes everything. By Saturday, the family pressure campaign was running at full volume. Aunt Lynn left a voicemail so polished it had to have been drafted by my mom. Think about your parents' health, sweetheart. Your mama's had heart palpitations. Is $44,000 really worth your father's blood pressure? Uncle Dennis sent a second message. One line, we didn't raise you to be this kind of person. As though he'd had any hand in raising me at all. Cousin Priya accidentally forwarded me a screenshot meant for someone else, a message from a family group chat I'd never been added to. The thread was about me. Teen people, all discussing what I should do. Not one of them had called to ask my side of the story. Then Marcus texted. Heads up. Aunt Sandra is organizing a family Sunday dinner at Aunt Lynn's house next weekend. She's calling it a family conversation. From what I'm hearing, it's basically a setup. They want to surround you publicly and pressure you into agreeing to pay. I read it twice. Sunday dinner. An audience. A stage. My mom was assembling the jury. What she didn't know was that the contract copy would be in my hands within days. And what she couldn't possibly imagine was that I would walk into that dinner with the one thing she was afraid of, the truth printed and documented. I texted Marcus back, I'll be there. Then I called Danny. They're setting up a public ambush, I said. Sunday dinner at Aunt Lynn's. Danny was quiet for a beat. Then, perfect. Let them. Teen family members. One made-up story. And not a single person had thought to ask for the actual paperwork. That was about to change. Saturday night. Late. I almost quit. I had the Air France website open on my laptop. A flight from Raleigh-Durham to Paris leaving Sunday morning. Aisle seat. The change fee was $340. My cursor sat on the confirm button. Paris was 14 hours away. My apartment. My desk. My city that didn't know any of these people or any of this story. Danny showed up at 9:30. She used the spare key card I'd given her earlier that week. She walked in, saw the laptop, and sat down at the foot of the bed without even taking off her coat. Close it. I'm just looking. You're running. And running is exactly what they're counting on. Your dad is betting that you'll fly home, eat the bill quietly, and never make him explain himself. Maybe that's the easier path. Easier for him. Not for you. She leaned forward. Maya, this isn't just about the money. If you walk away now, you're telling them they can use your name again whenever it's convenient. Your signature, your credit, your identity. Whenever they need a blank check, you're the account. That one landed differently than anything else she'd said all week. Contract copy is coming by Monday at the latest, she said. Give it 2 more days. I looked at the screen. The departure time. The change fee. The aisle seat in row 31. 2 more days, I said. I closed the laptop. Danny stayed for another hour. We talked about normal things, her cases at work, a restaurant she'd been wanting to try, a show she was watching. After she left, I lay in the dark and listened to the ice machine humming down the hallway. 2 more days. I almost didn't make it. I want you to know that. I was this close to going home. 2 in the morning, I was lying on top of the comforter still dressed, staring at the ceiling. My mind went somewhere I don't usually let it go. I was 12. I'd won the regional math Olympiad. My parents were supposed to come to the awards ceremony. My dad took Brooke to her travel softball tournament instead. My mom said she had a headache. I took the city bus home alone with the trophy in a plastic bag on my lap. When I got home, I put it on the kitchen counter. Next morning, it had been moved to the top of the refrigerator behind a cereal box. Brooke's soccer team photo was still front and center on the fridge door. Lying in that hotel room 20 years later, I finally understood what I'd been avoiding. I didn't fly 16 hours for a wedding. I flew 16 hours to see if they'd finally open the door. And they hadn't. The cruelest part wasn't being turned away. It was realizing I had still shown up hoping they wouldn't. At some point I fell asleep. I woke up at 7 with my shoes still on and a dull headache. One notification. An email from Hartwell Manor. Subject, document request, Caldwell event. Before I could open the attachment, my phone rang. Ray. 7:12 in the morning. Maya. He used my full name. He only did that when he wanted to sound formal. I hope you've come to your senses. The venue has been patient, but they won't wait forever. Funny you should call right now, Dad. Nothing funny about this. I talked to my guy again. He confirmed a guarantor contract is enforceable. Your name is on it. End of story. Did your guy also explain what happens when a guarantor's signature is forged? 'Cause I asked you that same question last time and you hung up instead of answering. Pause was longer this time. 4 full seconds. No one forged anything. It's a Class H felony in North Carolina. That's what forged means in a legal context. Another pause. His breathing was shallow. Deliberate. You want to play attorney? Fine. But don't come crying when a judge sees that document with your name in black and white. I won't be crying, Dad. I'll be presenting my passport with my actual signature and letting the handwriting speak for itself. I took a breath. I have the contract, by the way. The venue emailed it this morning. Silence. Total silence. I'm looking at the attachment right now. I could hear him swallow. It was the loudest sound on that phone call. He hung up without another word. I held the phone for a second. Then I got up, made a cup of coffee from the hotel machine, and waited until I was completely steady before I opened the PDF. Contract was 11 pages. I went through each one slowly. Page 1, venue details, event package, total cost. Page 2, payment terms, deposit schedule. Page 3, the guarantor agreement. I, Maya Caldwell, agree to be fully responsible for paying the remaining balance if the people who booked this event are unable to pay. And there at the bottom, a signature. Maya Caldwell. It wasn't mine. I stared at the handwriting. Whoever had signed it had tried to copy my script, the way I elongate the M, the particular curve of my lowercase y. But the way the pen pressed into the paper was off. The letter spacing was wrong. The whole thing had the feel of someone who had studied a sample and practiced but couldn't quite get the muscle memory right. Like someone who had looked at my old tax return and done their best impression of me. I set the laptop next to my passport, open to the photo page. My real signature right there. Consistent. Certain. Unmistakably mine. Two signatures did not match. I said it out loud to nobody in an empty hotel room. That is not my signature. And I can prove it. Called Danny. She picked up on the first ring. I'm looking at it, I said. How bad is it? How bad is the forgery? It's not even close, Danny. Someone practiced from a sample. It almost works, but it's not right. She exhaled slowly. That's textbook forgery. Under North Carolina law, a forged guarantor agreement means nothing. It has no legal force. You don't owe them a single cent. I leaned back in the chair. They didn't just lie about me. They became me on paper. In ink. Without asking. Danny came to the hotel within the hour, laptop and legal pad already in hand. We sat at the small desk by the window with 2 coffees and the PDF between us. Here's what we do, she said, uncapping her pen. You write a letter to the venue's legal team. Tell them you did not sign that agreement. Tell them the signature is not yours. Ask them to look at it and confirm it isn't you. Attach your passport page with your real signature so they can see the difference. And you add a short note of facts. I was not there when it was signed, I was never told it existed, and I never gave anyone permission to sign it for me. Exactly. She also added a line about keeping the original document safe in case a handwriting expert needed to look at it. I sent the letter at 2:18 in the afternoon with tracking so I'd know the moment it landed. Then I looked at the ceiling. Now what? Now we wait for the venue to respond. And we get ready for Sunday dinner. She smiled. I didn't, but I didn't rebook that flight either. 2 hours later, a second email came in. This one wasn't from the legal department. It was from Patricia Cole, the event coordinator. Her personal Hartwell Manor address, subject line just FYI. Ms. Caldwell, I probably shouldn't be sending this, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about your call. I was the one who processed the original guarantor paperwork. The person who dropped off the signed form was an older gentleman. He submitted it at our front desk and signed it right there at the counter while I was watching. I remember because he seemed rushed. I hope this helps. An older gentleman, signing at the front desk. In a hurry. Ray. My father walked into that venue, picked up a pen, and wrote my name on a legal document like it was his to write. I saved the email, printed a copy at the hotel business center, and added it to the folder alongside the contract copy and my passport signature page. 3 documents so far. The formal response from the venue's legal team was still pending, but Patricia's note alone was enough to make my hands stop shaking. I zipped the folder into my bag and sat back down. Sunday dinner was coming. The stage was being set. All I had to do was hold on until the rest of the truth caught up. By the following Wednesday, Marcus had texted again. Sunday dinner is confirmed. Aunt Lynn's house noon, that's this coming Sunday. Aunt Sandra keeps calling it a discussion. But from what I'm hearing, the plan is to put you at the table with everyone watching and keep the pressure on until you agree to pay. I texted Danny, "They're staging this." She replied immediately, "Good. Let them set the stage. We'll choose what goes on it." Then on Thursday morning, the email I'd been waiting for arrived. Hartwell Manor's Legal Department. Subject, Claim Review, Caldwell Guarantor Agreement. Dear Ms. Caldwell, we have received your dispute and the documents you sent us. Through a first look, we are starting a full signature check. Starting right now, we have stopped all attempts to collect money from you while we finish our investigation. We will update everyone when we are done. I read it twice. They wouldn't stop collection unless they already saw something wrong. The venue believed me. I forwarded it to Danny. She called 30 seconds later. They suspended it. Maya, they suspended collection. That means their own team looked at that signature and had doubts before they even ran the full comparison. I printed that email too. Added it to the folder alongside the contract copy, Patricia's note, and my passport page. 4 documents. Everything I needed. Plan was clean. I'd walk into that dinner with facts, not feelings. That's what I do for a living. I put documents on a table and let the room recalculate. Sunday morning. I pressed a white button-down blouse, put on a charcoal blazer and dark slacks, low heels. Professional, controlled. I went through the folder one more time. Danny called at 10. "How are you?" "Steady," I said. "Good. Call me the second it's over." I drove to Aunt Lynn's brick colonial in the North Hills neighborhood. Wide front porch. Chrysanthemum wreath on the door. 3 cars in the driveway, a couple more on the street. I sat in the rental for a full minute with the engine off, hands on the wheel. 18 people inside. Most of them had already made up their minds. They'd been given a version of events that cast me as the villain, the wealthy one who made a promise and broke it, who chose money over blood. I reached for the folder on the passenger seat. 4 documents. 12 pages. 1 truth. Then I got out, locked the car, and walked up the steps. The door was unlocked. Inside, the smell of baked casserole and fresh coffee. Voices from the dining room, low and serious, the sound of a family bracing for something. I stepped into the room. 18 faces turned. Ray saw me first. His jaw tightened. Sandra offered me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Brooke looked at the floor. Marcus, the groom, looked confused, like he'd wandered into a scene nobody briefed him on. There was no chair set out for me at the table. My cousin Marcus stood up immediately and pulled one in from the kitchen doorway. He gave me a small nod. I gave him one back. Ray stood at the head of the table, hands flat on the tablecloth. Posture of a man who believes every room belongs to him. "I want to thank everyone for being here," he said, like he was opening a board meeting. "We're dealing with a difficult situation. Maya made a commitment to help with Brooke's wedding. She signed a contract with the venue. And now she's refusing to honor it." Aunt Lynn nodded. Uncle Dennis crossed his arms. The jury had already voted. Sandra spoke next, dabbing her eyes. "We didn't want this to become a public thing. We've always kept family matters private. But Maya hasn't left us a choice." Then Brooke, voice small, eyes red, "I just wanted my sister at my wedding. I wrote her a personal note. I personally invited her. And now it's turned into this whole fight over money." Marcus, the groom, sat beside her looking increasingly like someone who was piecing together a puzzle nobody had told him existed. Chorus began. "Aunt Lynn, Maya, we've always seen you as the responsible one. Just do the right thing." Uncle Dennis, "Your parents could lose their home over this. Is that what you want?" Priya, the cousin who'd sent me that voice note telling me to just handle it, she looked genuinely uncomfortable now that she was sitting across a table from the person she'd been talking about. She didn't say anything this time. She just looked down at her plate. Each voice like a stone dropped onto a pile. They weren't asking questions. They were delivering a verdict. Through all of it, I watched Marcus, the groom. He was leaning back in his chair, eyes moving from Ray to Sandra to Brooke, with an expression I recognized immediately. The expression of someone hearing a story and realizing it doesn't match the one they were told. He leaned toward Brooke and whispered just loud enough for me to catch, "What contract?" Brooke touched his arm. "I'll explain later." Marcus pulled his arm back. His jaw shifted. Ray, feeling bold now with the whole room behind him, spread his hands. "You see? Even your family agrees. You made a commitment. We have the contract. You signed it. Aunt Lynn, just say yes, Maya. Just say you'll cover it and we can all move forward." I looked at my dad. Held his gaze for 3 full seconds. Then I stood up. Chairs scraped the hardwood. The room went completely quiet. "I've been listening," I said. "Now it's my turn." I opened the folder and placed the first document in the center of the table. This is the contract everyone keeps talking about. The guarantor agreement for Brooke's wedding at Hartwell Manor. My name is on it. I pointed to the signature line. "But that is not my signature." I placed my passport beside it, open to the photo page. "This is my actual signature. The one I've had since I was 17. Look at them side by side." Aunt Lynn picked up the contract first. She held it next to the passport, squinting. Uncle Dennis leaned in. Priya set down her fork and leaned in too, like she was finally deciding which side of the table she was actually on. Even Marcus, the groom, leaned forward. The signatures weren't close. When you actually looked, really looked, they weren't close at all. "Hartwell Manor has already opened a formal investigation," I said, placing the venue's letter on the table. "All collection activity directed at me has been suspended pending the outcome." Ray's face had gone completely gray. That's not, you could have signed it electronically or..." "Dad." I kept my voice even. The venue's own event coordinator sent me a written statement. She confirmed that an older gentleman submitted this form in person and signed it himself at the front desk. She remembered him because he seemed rushed. I placed that email on the table beside the other documents. The room processed that sentence in real time. I watched it hit Aunt Lynn's face. Then Uncle Dennis. Then Marcus, the groom, whose expression had gone from confused to something I can only describe as quietly devastated. Ray's mouth opened. Nothing came out. For the first time in my memory, I watched my father have nothing to say. And listen, if you're watching this right now and you've ever been in a room where someone finally got caught in a lie they've been telling for months, you know exactly what that moment feels like. The air just changes. Hit the like button if you felt that. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it right now. I need you to see how this ends. Aunt Lynn set the contract down on the tablecloth like it had burned her. "Ray, did you sign her name?" It was for Brooke. We had no other option. You committed forgery." Uncle Dennis stood up, face flushed. "On your own daughter's signature." "Ray, that's a felony." Sandra reached for Ray's arm. "We were desperate. You don't understand what we've been going through." "Sandra," Aunt Lynn's voice was a blade. "I asked you directly 3 weeks ago whether Maya had agreed to help with the venue. You looked me in the eye and said yes." Sandra said nothing. At the far end of the table, Marcus, the groom, pushed his chair back and turned to Brooke. "You told me your parents were paying for the venue. You said Maya was just helping with the flowers." His voice wasn't loud. It was worse than loud, it was very, very calm. "Did you know your dad forged your sister's name on a $44,000 contract?" Brooke reached for his hand. "Marcus, it was complicated." "It's a crime, Brooke." He stood up. "It's not complicated. It's a crime. And you knew. I didn't want. You let your dad turn your sister away at the door. Your wedding. Because you were afraid she'd find out." The room had fractured. Ray and Sandra on one end, pinned and exposed. Brooke reaching for a hand that was pulling away. and me at the other end of the table with an open folder saying nothing more. I didn't need to. The documents were doing exactly what documents do. I raised one hand. I'm not done. The room went silent. I'm not pressing charges. That's not why I'm here. I looked at each person at the table. But I want everyone in this room to understand 3 things. One finger, I never signed that contract. I do not owe a single dollar of the $44,000. Not legally. Not morally. Not in any way. Second finger, I flew 16 hours to be at my sister's wedding. I stood outside that venue with an invitation in my hand and was turned away at the door by the same person who forged my name, because he was afraid I'd find out before it was too late. Third finger, I don't hate anyone in this room. But I will not carry debts that were never mine. And I will not apologize for refusing to. Sandra's voice came through the tears. Maya, please. Mom. I lowered my hand. I'm done being the person you call only when you need something signed or paid or blamed. Ray was still staring at the contract on the table like it was a mirror he couldn't stop looking into. Kindness is not a contract, I said. And being family is not a blank check. I gathered the documents slowly, returned them to the folder, and tucked it under my arm. I walked past the table, past the casserole and the cold coffee and the absolute silence. Marcus, my cousin, met my eyes as I passed. He gave me a small nod. I walked out the front door, down the porch steps, and into the thin January light. Nobody followed. But this time, the silence didn't feel like rejection. Felt like something I'd earned. I was halfway to the rental car when I heard voices carrying through the open dining room window. Marcus, the groom, quiet but firm, you lied to me about the money. You lied about your sister. What else am I not knowing? Brooke, Marcus, I didn't lie, we handled it. Your father committed a felony and you protected him over your own sister. You understand how serious that is? I didn't linger. I got in the car, set the folder on the passenger seat, started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw my cousin Marcus walk down the porch steps toward the driver's side window. Came up and I rolled it down. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen, he said quietly. You're the one who warned me. You're the one who kept me in the loop. You did plenty yourself. He shoved his hands in his jacket pockets. For what it's worth, most of that room is on your side now. Aunt Lynn got up in your dad's face and told him he should be ashamed of himself. And that is not something Aunt Lynn does lightly. Is Marcus, the groom, is he okay? He told Brooke he needs space. He walked out to his car about 2 minutes after you left. He paused. Brooke's trying to cancel Cancun. I let that settle. The resort. The trip she'd been counting down to on Instagram. Drive safe, Maya. I pulled away from Aunt Lynn's house and didn't check the rearview mirror again. The highway was wide and empty and I drove in silence because some quiet is something you have to earn. Monday morning. Hotel lobby. Checking out. The email from Hartwell Manor arrived while I was standing at the front desk with my suitcase. Subject, Guarantor Agreement, Final Determination. Dear Ms. Caldwell, we have completed our investigation. After checking the handwriting and talking to our front desk staff who saw the form being signed, we have confirmed that the signature on the Guarantor Agreement is not Maya Caldwell's real signature. Because of this, the Guarantor Agreement is cancelled completely. The full amount of $44,000 is now the responsibility of the people who originally booked the event, Raymond and Sandra Caldwell. I read it standing at the front desk. Then I read it again. The desk clerk asked if I needed anything else. I said no. I walked to the rental car, sat in the driver's seat, and read it one more time. Then I called Danny. It's done, I said. Tell me. Cancelled. All of it. They put the full bill back on my parents. She let out a long breath. You owe nothing. I owe nothing. A second email had come in while we were on the phone, the revised invoice sent to Ray and Sandra Caldwell. I was CC'd. Please pay the full amount of $44,000 within 60 days. Payment is not received, legal action will follow. 60 days. $44,000. For a wedding staged to prove they were something they weren't, signed with a name that was never theirs to use. I drove to the airport. The flight home was 14 hours. I slept for 11 of them, the deepest sleep I'd had in weeks. Brooke called 3 days later. I was back in Paris, standing in my kitchen looking out at the canal in the late afternoon light. Her voice was different. The sharpness was gone. What was left sounded like someone who'd run out of angles. Marcus canceled Cancun, she said. He says he can't move forward until I'm honest about everything. That sounds like a conversation you need to have with your husband, Brooke. He wants to use the deposit money toward the venue bill. $1,000. Are you going to? Silence. Then I think I have to. I poured hot water over a tea bag and waited. Maya, she said. I need you to talk to him. Tell him I'm not a bad person. Tell him it wasn't supposed to go this way. No. That's your marriage, Brooke. Those are your words to find. I can't go fix things for you when you're the one who burned the bridge. She was crying now. Not the practiced tears from Sunday dinner. Real tears. Kind that come when there's nothing left to perform. I was wrong, she said finally. I know I was wrong. Knowing isn't the same as fixing it. Then how do I fix it? You start with the truth. With Marcus, with yourself. You stop treating other people's names like resources you can borrow without asking. Call ended quietly a few minutes later. No resolution. No big movie moment where we hugged and forgave everything. Just two sisters on opposite sides of an ocean and a forgery, and the quiet that honesty creates before it has a chance to heal. I drank my tea by the window and watched a barge move slowly down the canal. My dad called on a Thursday evening 2 weeks after I got back. I was reviewing a client report at my desk when his name appeared on screen. I answered. The voice on the other end wasn't the one I expected. The authority was gone. The rehearsed steadiness was gone. What was left sounded like a man who'd finally stopped pretending. The venue is moving forward with legal action, he said. I had to sell the second work truck. And we're selling off what's left of the equipment from the business. You put yourself in this position, Dad. I know. 2 words. No deflection. No blame shifting. Nobody with legal advice. Just I know. I thought you'd just cover it. His voice dropped. I thought because you had the money. I thought you'd pay it and never ask questions. 'Cause that's what I've always done. Handled things quietly. Flown back home. Not made a scene. Yes. I looked out the window at the city lights reflecting off the canal. A crane was working on a new building across the water, its red light blinking in the dark. There's something else, he said. The venue wasn't the only thing. I also signed your name on the rental agreement for the tables and the lighting equipment. Another $6,000. $50,000 total. With my name on it. Without a single word to me. Dad, I'm not going to lecture you. The venue has already canceled that contract and cleared my name. I'm out of it completely. What happens next, the payments, the truck, whatever comes, that's all yours now. I'm sorry, Maya. A pause. I mean that. I hear you. I watched the crane's red light blink in the dark. But sorry doesn't erase what you signed. And it doesn't erase standing at that door and telling me I didn't belong. He was quiet for a long time. I know, he said again. Then he hung up. I'd been back in Paris for 3 weeks by then, but the whole thing kept settling inside me the way dirt slowly sinks to the bottom of a glass of water, layer by layer until it finally clears and you can see straight through. The morning after Ray's call, I went for a walk along the canal before work. The water was that flat gray-green it gets in winter, and the air was cold enough to make my breath visible. I passed the same bakery, the same man walking his dog near the old footbridge. My phone buzzed. Aunt Lynn, Maya, I owe you a real apology. I should have asked for your side of the story before I took anyone's word. I'm sorry. Then Uncle Dennis, a text this time, not a formal email. I said things I shouldn't have. I was wrong. Then Marcus, my cousin, you're the strongest person I know. Seriously. 3 apologies from people who'd been ready to dismiss me a week ago. Nothing from Ray. Nothing from Sandra. Nothing from Brooke. The 3 people who actually owed me the words. I put my phone away and watched a tourist boat cut through the gray water. Winning didn't feel the way I'd imagined. I thought there would be something clean about it, a sense of closure, a door clicking shut. Instead it felt like cleaning out a wound. Necessary. Unavoidable. But still stinging. Danny called that evening. How are you actually doing? Honestly? Relieved. Sad. Tired. All 3 at once. That sounds exactly right. She told me about a new case at her firm. Normal things. Human things. The same steadiness she'd been showing me all month. Some people hold you up by being extraordinary. Danny held me up by being consistent. 3 months later, here's where things stood. Ray sold the leased Escalade and the remaining landscaping equipment. Between that and a small loan from Uncle Dennis, who, to his credit, put his money where his apology was, my parents managed to pay about $24,000 toward the venue debt. The remaining balance was being worked into a monthly payment plan. Their retirement timeline pushed back by at least 5 years. Sandra got a job. Part-time at a grocery store on the east side of Raleigh. First time she'd worked outside the home in 27 years. I heard this from Marcus, not from her. Brooke and Marcus, the groom, were still together, but they were in couples counseling. Marcus's condition for staying. He told Brooke that honesty wasn't optional anymore, financial, personal, all of it. Brooke surrendered the Cancun deposit toward the venue bill. Hartwell Manor declined to pursue criminal charges. In most civil situations, a payment plan is more practical than prosecution. Ray would not have a felony record. What he would have was a debt, a shrunken sense of himself, and the permanent knowledge that he'd been exposed in front of everyone whose respect he'd spent decades performing for. In March, a letter arrived at my apartment. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting, Sandra's careful, slanted print. 1 page short. I don't have the right to ask for anything. But I want you to know I'm learning what it means to earn something instead of just expecting it. I'm sorry, Maya. I set the letter on my kitchen table next to my cup of tea. I didn't write back. Not because I was angry, I wasn't, not anymore. But because I wasn't ready, and for the first time in my life, I let that be enough. I didn't push myself to perform a forgiveness I hadn't fully arrived at yet. Paris carried on. Spring came to the canal. The water changed color from dark gray to something softer, almost green. I went to work. I analyzed risk. Caught mistakes and problems in contracts that saved clients money they'd never even know about. And I came home to my apartment and made tea and looked out the window. But something had shifted inside me. I started saying yes to things I used to automatically say no to. Colleague's birthday dinner. A weekend trip to Bordeaux with 2 friends from work. A cooking class I'd bookmarked and never taken. A phone call from Marcus, my cousin, that lasted an hour and went absolutely nowhere important and everywhere that mattered. For years, I had mixed up being independent with being alone. I had built a life that was clean and organized and entirely mine. And somewhere in the building of it, mine had started to mean by myself. Trip to Raleigh didn't fix that. But it cracked something open enough to let the light in. In April, I called Brooke. It was a short call. No mention of the contract, the venue, or the money. No apologies, no accusations. Just 2 sisters talking in a way that didn't have an agenda buried underneath it. "How's work?" she asked. "Busy." Good, busy. You? Fine. Marcus and I are doing better. Counseling is actually helping. Good. A beat. Then, Maya? Yeah? I'm glad you called. That was it. No big makeup moment. No crying and hugging and pretending everything was fine. Just a door left open, not because anyone had fully earned it yet, but because keeping it closed was costing me more than I'd realized. It's evening in Paris now. The sky over the Canal Saint-Martin is that particular shade of deep blue it gets in late spring, dark at the edges with a pale gold where the city lights catch the water. I'm sitting at the window in my apartment with a cup of Earl Grey that's gone lukewarm, which is honestly how I like it if I'm being real with you. I think about that January day sometimes. The long driveway. The bare oaks and Edison lights. The sound of a string quartet playing through doors I wasn't allowed to walk through. Leave. You're not family here. My dad said that to me at a door he'd already closed. And in a twisted way, he was right about one thing. Only family was allowed. He just forgot who his family actually was. He forgot that family isn't a performance you stage for your neighbors and cousins. It isn't a contract you sign with someone else's hand. It isn't a bill you slide across a table because you assume someone's too polite or too afraid to say no. Family is the people who show up, not because they owe you, but because they choose to. It's Danny, who brought bad hotel coffee to my room at 9:30 at night and told me to close the laptop. It's my cousin Marcus, who sent a screenshot that changed everything because he thought someone should know the truth. It's the version of Brooke who called me in April and said I'm glad you called and meant it enough to let it just be simple. I look at my passport on the shelf across the room. The signature inside is mine. Firm. Clean. Unforged. The signature I've had since I was 17 that belongs to no one but me. My name is Maya Caldwell. I'm 32 years old. I work in financial analysis. I live alone in an apartment by a canal in Paris, France. And I'm learning, still learning every single day, that saying no to what diminishes you is the same thing as saying yes to who you actually are. Nobody signs my name but me. And honestly, that's enough. That is finally completely enough. That's my story. And if you made it all the way to the end, thank you. Seriously. That means a lot to me. Now before you go, I need a favor from you. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if you've ever been the one in your family who always gets called when something needs to be fixed, paid, or handled, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it helps more people find this story. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe. I post every week and I promise you, the stories only get better. I don't want you to miss a single one. Now here are my 3 questions for you, and I want you to answer in the comments. Option 1. Have you ever been the family ATM? The one everybody calls when they need something but nobody calls just to say hey? Option 2. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against your own family, even when it cost you something real? What happened? Option 3. Have you ever caught someone in a lie they tried to dress up as love? Tell me about it. Drop your answer and your city and local time in the comments. I genuinely read every single comment. Every single one. And I love knowing where in the world you're watching from. If someone you know needs to hear this story today, a friend, a coworker, a family member who's been treated like a doormat, please share this video with them. You never know who needs to see it. Until next time, remember this: your name is yours. Your signature is yours. Your worth is yours. Don't let anybody sign any of those away from you. See you in the next one.